Welcome everyone to the Voice of Terminus show 76. Today is our crafting discussion and we're going to have a open chat and talk about all kinds of crazy ideas towards crafting. We have Joshua with us. Say hello, Josh.
Hey guys.
And say hello, Lex.
What's up, people?
And before we kick it off, I need to quickly go and resize the chat because it's huge. So let me go and quickly adjust that real quick. And then we'll kick this off. Now we can't read anything, you know. Because Shy keeps on taking on... She takes on everything. Shy, can you repaste something real quick? So I can see if that helped. Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Who gives a damn? So, this is the final show for July, and we do not have the August and September setup finished yet. We will hopefully have that done sometime early next week, and we'll get that to you guys as soon as possible. So, to go and kick this off, I'm going to go and bring up what Corey Lefevre had to say in June's newsletter. The last segment from the developers' standpoint, where they currently are with crafting and what they currently had planned. So I'm going to quickly go and give this a read. And finally, we started the groundwork for the crafting process itself. We originally had a quick put the items in a container and press combine approach. Our research with those players that have expressed an interest in crafting and Pantheon's points to a desire to see something more, though, I think we've arrived at a good balance at providing a gameplay experience that's on more equal footing with the adventuring content, without being terribly bogged down in needing to know a ton of historic information. The short explanation, though, for the action itself when it comes to crafting is that we're moving towards a turn-based session with your own crafting abilities to aid you. So that's what they had to say in June when it came towards where they currently are with crafting. I definitely like the sound of that. You know, when we look back at all the streams and when they've mentioned crafting, they've always kind of hinted at crafting being at the same level as the adventuring side of the game, where crafters will have ample stuff to do and be able to dig deep and indulge into crafting without having to think about the adventuring aspect of the game. So, in all fairness, what they've done with that statement is the correct way to go. Because they would have done put the items together in a container and press combine, that would have been a kind of like a slap in the face to what they've already said about crafting. Yeah, it would have been like,
it would have been very boring.
It would have been very boring and it would have been a step back to what they're trying to achieve. So that's definitely the right way to go. Now I want to kind of bring in some other things to relate to this. Now, I've recently been playing Dark and Light. It's a survival MMO of sorts. And their housing and crafting system in there is like your atypical survival game. And it got me to thinking to actually, you know, to go and see a new-aged sandbox game with its survival aspects. It kind of got me to thinking about how could we profit from systems out of survival games with Pantheons? Because I was thinking, you know, have Pantheon, the MMO, and then add the crafting and building aspect of a survival game into the mix, and I think you've got an amazing startup towards expanding on the whole entire crafting system. Because we're all fed up with it. We're all fed up with just pushing your buttons, waiting till it runs down, completes, and you got your item. We're fed up with not being able to interact with other players when it comes to crafting and relying on other people to help. So what's your take on what VR in that statement said, and the idea of trying to take some elements out of the survival aspect and see where we can bounce off of that. Lex?
Well, I certainly think it's a step in the right direction, because you're going from, this is very general, you're going from EverQuest 1 type crafting to EverQuest 2 type crafting, in a sense. There's going to be more to it than that, I'm sure. Because let's face it, the old EverQuest style of putting items into a container, which is technically your recipe, and then hitting combine is just very, very old school, very boring, very non-interactive, although it does have a positive element to it because there's a reason to explore and try to find recipes until, you know, that was all updated in EverQuest 1. They show you recipes. But I was actually a fan of the EverQuest 2 crafting. I wasn't a fan of the Gathering. So it's certainly a step in the right direction. When you take into consideration how Dark and Light or other survival titles do crafting, and I'm a big survival player, there is a lot that Pantheon could not necessarily take from them, but learn from them. Because crafting in a lot of these survival games is a form of necessity. You have to craft. You have to know how to craft. When you improve your character, crafting becomes better along with you.
Yeah.
And in most MMOs, it always feels like a whole separate section of the game. You know, you do one or the other or both, and it's just you feel like your time is split versus this is part of the gameplay experience.
Exactly.
That's true. Yeah, for me, I think that it would be nice that the crafting would be a nice supplement to the gear that you find, where it actually adds value to all the items that you actually find at the end of the day. And no crafting item is people throw away, or by the next patch or year, that level becomes useless. They should try and make that benefit the gear that you find.
Now, we don't know much about the housing system, the guild housing system in Pantheon. We do not know if we will be able to build in the open, or if we're going to have set places where we can build and whatnot. And this is something that I found pretty cool in these survival games, is the fact that let's just go in, you know, this is what we do, we speculate. Let's go and assume, for instance, now that we would be able to build in the open, claim plots of land or whatever, and, you know, build from there. What I really dig, and I think would make the game even more interesting, is the fact that the buildings decay over time. If you have a straw hut, when it rains, it soaks, it gets damaged, or when it's really hot, or it snows, it starts to get damaged. So it decays over time. You would have to repair it. I think something like that should also play an impact in crafting and housing in general in an MMO too. Why have these crafting professions if all they're going to do is craft items and craft armor and spells and gear, and the house just stays there and doesn't need to be updated or renovated or modified or fixed or whatever, because, you know, hey, this wooden floor is now starting to be used because so many people have been walking over it, going back and forth, we might have to repair it. I think if they can add stuff like that, because I'm sure there's plenty of crafters out there, I'm one of them. If they add stuff like this into the game, into an MMO, where I would technically have to sit at the back and just take care of the guild house, the items that we have, keep them restored, you know, keep up relations with the town folk, I'd do that. I'd be happy just spending my time in an MMO like Pantheon, taking care of all the crafting aspects of the game, and just, you know, indulge in that kind of thing. So what do you think about stuff like that, guys? Having to maintain stuff or upgrade stuff, having upgrade abilities.
I think it's a great. I think it's a great way to actually get you to go harvesting and make it kind of necessary as well. I think that what would be great is if you could actually hire a builder from town. If you're not really the type of guy that wants to go and repair and do the type of things, so that they can actually do the repairs for you over a period of a month, for instance. You hire that person, and it's just a gold sink or whatever the case may be. But you have to obviously supply the crafting materials or the building materials for that builder.
Yeah. I saw you shaking your head there, Lex.
Well, everybody knows I'm not that big into crafting, even though I want to be. When we look at environmental building, houses, furniture, stuff like that, stuff that you see in the environment versus items, potions, and consumables, I do like the idea of it being worn down over time, but that's going to have to be a very careful balance for someone like me, because if I'm constantly spending my time just maintaining my home, I'm not going to build one.
Oh,
it's
definitely.
Just the way it is. Now, I like Josh's idea of being able to hire somebody, but there has to be basically safeguards put in, or a whole system for hiring crafters to maintain your home. But then it's like, if I hire someone to fix my roof on my actual home, I expect to just pay them a flat however much they want. It's up to them to get the materials. It's up to them to do it in a timely fashion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just want to, take the money and go. Just get it done.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I'd want to do it in a game as well, if that was a system. I don't want to have to go out and make sure my gathering skills are at a certain level just so that I can provide this crafter with the materials to repair my home.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, probably if you didn't want to provide the materials to that builder, then he'll just use whatever cheap materials he has over there. But if you want him to put on like maybe gold embroidered shelving or something like that, then you can supply him with the materials.
Right. Well, see, then as a crafter, or as someone looking for a crafter, I would expect to see certain kind of definitions in the looking for work system. Yeah. Where they could say uses premium materials, stuff like that. If I say I want a bookshelf, I'll look for the guy who has that flag where it's like uses premium materials. Check. Okay. And it shows their feet.
Yeah. You could have
materials plus whatever. You
could go into it and split up the your crafting likeness. You could say I'm a decorator. I'll go and do your interior design. I'm an architect. I'll help you design your home. And I maintain. I'm a maintainer. So you could even, as additional ways to earn money, get additional resources and stuff like that, you could also go and put yourself out there, not just being a normal crafter for your profession, but you could say that I've gone and specialized in interior design and actually give people jobs to do. So, let's say for instance us three have got houses and Shai's got a house, and now we haven't got time. We don't want to spend time decorating our houses. But hey, my wife, she loves decorating houses. So she's put herself out as a decorator. Now she takes on 4 jobs from us. And then she goes into our individual houses and starts decorating them. Whereas maybe somebody else will be a maintainer. Someone that will go and actually see and make sure that the houses are maintained. Now what you said earlier on, Lex, you're definitely right. That's one thing I haven't quite got to terms with, is the decaying is pretty fast. It's very fast in these survival MMOs. It decays way too fast. It should have a very slow decay, similar to how we have it in EverQuest 2 with our guild hall. You pay status points, you pay guild money, you pay, you know, platinum to maintain the NPCs in your house, to maintain an event. So something similar to that I as a player can put into my home or my guild hall or whatever to keep it maintained. So like so add a secondary system where I can maybe put in materials for, you know, let's say for instance now we've got wooden floors and we've got stone walls and whatnot. They require stone and wood. So now if I have a secondary window or whatever where I can put in materials, and when those materials have disappeared, that's when it starts decaying. So if I keep on providing it with materials to maintain, that would be a good workaround, I think, and something for us as a community, as a guild, as friends. It would also open up more options to the market.
Yeah.
Because, you know, all kinds of people will be going out there trying to get all these materials in, also to help maintain their livelihood, their homes and everything. So it would open up another market. It would add a different value point to these materials as well, and so forth.
I think what Carthus says over there, where he talks about the winter seasons to fortify your home during difficult seasons and things like that, is totally right. I think the decay should be a lot slower than that, and if you are going to use rare materials that you maybe only can get from dungeons or that type of thing, and you have these seasons that actually decay and break, say now you have like a hurricane going through the city, or something like that destroys part of your home, for instance, you're going to have to pick up your bags and go back into those dungeons and go get the rare crafting materials again, because that's how it's going to be. And it just makes it, you got to think about what you use.
I certainly think it would open up a whole new level of socialization with adventurers to crafters and vice versa. I mean, you've got a constant loop going in a situation like that. You know, I'm an adventurer, you're a crafter. I want a home for whatever bonuses or whatever it gives me. So I contact you, and you could do it real cheap if I provide materials, or I basically say, here, I'll pay you even more because I can't be bothered. You build me a home. I still go adventuring. I'm getting bonuses that make my life a little easier from my home. It's Decay. Whether it be from world events such as storms, whether it be through just wear and tear, because, you know, I have a party in my home every Wednesday night. And then I have to contact you again just to maintain it. Yep. It does pose a very intriguing system that I think if Pantheon doesn't do something like that, we will see an MMO that does pick up on that. Simply because it is taking that uniqueness one step farther than any other game has.
Because,
to my knowledge.
Because when I was looking at it, playing this survival game, one thing that I did kind of give me a weary feeling was the fact that I'm on a PvE server, which is actually unusual for survival games. And I asked myself, you know, what's the point of what's the point of this game now? What is the point of this game, this survival game on a PvE server? There's no quests, there's no dungeons to go through. You can't really form a group and go off and hunt stuff and do this. So what is the point of this PvE game now? What is the point of this game? And then this is why I came up with, you know, this is why I brought this into this discussion, thinking about looking at Pantheon, this upcoming MMO that we're all craving for, bringing back the hardcore game elements, the grouping, the socializing aspects of the game, and then taking this awesome system from survival games and putting that into a MMO like Pantheon, where you have decaying buildings, you have your food maybe decaying, which we'll get into in a minute, and being able to maintain and have crafters come in and help you out, or even have town folk hire people from towns to do it for you if you haven't got the time and whatnot. I think that would go a very long way, and add, you know, quests as well. You can add so many quests towards the crafting aspect of this, for people to go and do on the side. And I think, like you said, Lex, if it's not done now in Pantheon or in any of the upcoming games, somebody will pick up on it, because I see a bigger future with games like that. Taking survival aspects and actually using those survival in a true MMO like Pantheon. Because at the moment, to me, that game gave me, from the videos and everything, a false impression. When I was watching the earlier videos, I thought this was an MMO with survival aspects. But it's not. It's your atypical survival game, where you go out and tame beasts and this, that and the other. So I'm kind of missing that MMO feel. And I think, though, that MMOs can profit from this, using that. Because a lot of people would want that. It's basically taking Landmark or Minecraft, survival game, and an MMO together, and you've got this amazing game that would accommodate everybody. Crafters, adventurers, explorers, you name it. Everybody's got their fill, and they can go down different paths.
I think that Pantheon is primed for a situation like that, simply because it's got the third aspect that a lot of other MMOs currently don't have, is the fighting against the environment itself, as well as just mobs and that type of thing. So when you are up against your storms, your blizzards, your whatever environmental aspects that you come across, you're going to have to survive in those type of areas. So they really should try and take advantage of those type of things.
We talked about this in the previous crafting shows, where we had the idea of having like world events where the city gets attacked and maybe the church tower gets broken, or the tavern's roof's been set on fire, and crafters have to go out and repair it. So add that to the player aspect of housing and guild housing as well. Just broadens the perspectives for what is achievable. Now, we obviously do not know what VR are going to offer us when it comes to housing and whatnot, but they've already hinted at player crafted lookout towers or something like that. I think it was on the webpage. So
outposts or something like that.
Yeah, something, or outposts. So that kind of hints at something like that, maybe. And we do not know how big the world's going to be itself. But from what Corey had to say about how they're approaching crafting, turn-based and everything, it's kind of drifting towards the Vanguard aspect. So that does beg to question if they're going to go one further as well when it comes to the player housing. Because if anybody who's played Vanguard knows how big that world was. I mean, it was kilometers over kilometers over kilometers, and you could basically build anywhere. You could buy yourself a plot of land or get yourself a plot of land, and you could build a massive guild city if you wanted to. If you had the time, resources and whatnot. So it's definitely going to be a question of what they're going to offer us. Now, Lex, do you want to add anything before I bring on the next one?
No, I think I'm good.
Alright, so we were talking about this before the show. Another thing that I found pretty cool in this survival game was when it comes to cooking. Now, I can see this is an idea that would fit into what we've been talking about in our previous crafting shows, having like multiple tables to work with, and don't have your alchemist just use one table and do everything. Don't have your cook use one table. This idea, what I'm going to bring up now, kind of fits into this category as well. What about if our food and drink spoiled over time, and you could basically upgrade it over time? So you could have like a pantry, like Shai mentioned, where you could actually have a longer lasting life effect. So let's say we've got a cook in a guild, he starts cooking, we finally get a pantry, we go out, we go and kill creatures and whatnot, we get raw meat from them, or wild berries, this, that and the other, we go gather water and whatnot, we create glass bottles and stuff, and now the cook basically takes all these elements and starts using them and creating different foods, different tiers, different levels. So he could take this raw meat, cook it. Now this raw meat, as it's been produced, it's now been cooked, lasts for maybe 10-15 minutes. Now, if he goes and adds sulfur salts to it and puts it in the pantry to dry out or whatnot, it's going to last now 3-4 hours. So your food kind of, we do have similar stuff like this already in the recipes. You have your cooking recipes where you go down, you pick out what's, where you have attributes, you have resists on it, you have this, you have a longer lasting duration. But adding this aspect from the survival game to it kind of opens up more options for the cooks as well, I think.
Well,
yeah.
Being someone that plays a lot of survival games, I don't necessarily want to see food decay in my MMO. Because that means I'm going to either forget my food, or I'm going to forget to refresh my food, and I'm going to be out in a dungeon, and I'm going to be mad. Mostly at myself for being forgetful. Which means that's like another 5, 10, 15 minutes I have to spend before I can go out and do my adventure.
Yeah, or you're going to be eating rotting food like certain people. Which
might give me a debuff. What I would like to suggest instead is have fresh food give you a bonus, and then as that timer decays and it's no longer fresh, your bonus decreases. Ooh. But it never becomes a point where the food isn't useful. Like, say you get like a meat pie. Okay, it gives you plus 10 stamina.
Yeah.
Fresh. Maybe it's fresh for 2 hours, okay? After 2 hours, you only get plus 5. It's no longer fresh. It's stale, And that way, you have a benefit to have it fresh. And you definitely, if you have the time or the desire to spend, that extra prep time, you have everything to gain. But if you're in a hurry, or you're just on for like a little dungeon run or whatever, then you're probably fine with your stale food. It's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to make or break the whole experience.
That's definitely an interesting way to approach it. From taking what the survival games offer and fitting it in to an MMO like Pantheon. That's probably the best way I could that you to think of it, to approach that. Because like you said, it is kind of annoying. You don't want your food to decay. I can understand that, and I definitely wouldn't want that to happen as well. I would be forgetful, and that's actually the a very good balance to bring those aspects of the game, flip them around to suit an MMO, and add that little twist of challenge to it as well. Because we're all about a challenging game. We know Pantheon's going to be challenging, group orientated. You're going to have to socialize and this, that, and the other, and add those little twists like you just mentioned. I think would be the perfect balance on how to do it, rather than what we suggested earlier. It's definitely a good approach. What do you say, Josh?
I think that you could even take it further, in the sense that I think different races may have certain abilities that allow them to make food last longer. They have techniques that maybe you can learn as you go along in the game. So, yeah, I think that is definitely worthwhile to get those benefits. And if you think about it, I mean, if you remember back to EverQuest 2, the food used to last, when you were like a level 20 cook, used to last maybe an hour max. But when you were getting to like level 90, 100, it would last 5 hours or something like that, 6 hours. So it's the techniques and the rarer components that you're using is going to make the food last longer.
Yep.
Yeah, and it also gives room for those min-maxer and raider types, like me, that when it comes raid time, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get the best fresh food for my role, because that's, a whole different aspect of the MMO, where if I'm grouping, whatever. If I'm raiding, I want to win, so I'll do everything I can to win.
But here's the thing: you're going into a dungeon for a long time. So what kind of containers are you going to have that's going to make that food last longer? Maybe.
See, here's the thing: you can even add, I'll go back to EverQuest 1. You would have different attributes to your containers, like the size of items that it could hold. Small, medium, large, and giant. I might be wrong, but it's just what I'm remembering off the top of my head. You had how many slots it had. You had the weight reduction that it currently gave you. Why not add something that can increase the duration of your food? You know? So it's still a container for items. It's like if I've got a backpack, you know, I could still stick some gauntlets in there, but I could also stick, you know, my field rations in there, and maybe I'll get my bonus for a little longer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe there's special containers that get crafted that supplement the cooking side of it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, they had all these different, you know, they got all these different forges and workbenches and stuff like that as well. And that's something I definitely would love to see happen to the individual crafters as well. Having them have individual workspaces and work processes they have to go through. If we're looking at turn-based, if that's the approach they're going to take, then I think that they could add a few more workbenches for the individual crafters themselves. Like you got let's take the scribe for instance. Let's say he can create maps, so he's gonna have to make paper sheets. He's gonna have to make ink to draw. He's gonna have to impart it as well. Basically, you know, put a parchment on it and to make it stick and everything. So that should be 3 different tables he has to go through to create that one piece of map. He would have to go and create the ink, so he'd have to get the glass files maybe from the alchemist or whatnot, and maybe have the alchemist make the ink for him. And then he takes that back and he starts using that ink. So he creates his piece of paper, his sheet, whatever size he wants to go through on that one table. He then takes that piece of paper, goes to the next table with the ink. So it's a little process, a little turn-based game. So he's going through a little game. So you can see him like writing up and down and drawing and sketching and whatnot. And you could even add fizzle to it, or you know, a overuse. You know, if he doesn't click his counter spells right at the right time, it could, you know, completely destroy the map. So now
could knock his ink bottle over the page.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been destroyed. So it's kind of going through steps like that, and then you take, once you've drawn your map, you go to the next table where you basically put a resistance over it or whatever to seal it off and everything, to dry it and whatnot. So that's the kind of thing I would definitely like to see happen. The same goes for cooking as well. You know, the cook shouldn't just have a stove. He should have different options available to him. Yeah. And the same goes for, you know...
he should have a curing shed, for instance. He should have a cooking stove. He should have a pantry. He should have various things, yeah.
Because if I go in basically collect carrots and collect berries and stuff like that, they are technically going to rot over time. So if he has a pantry where he puts them in, he preserves them, so they stay fresh. They stay fresh. So basically, so for cooking, for instance, the cook would need to have a pantry at some point to preserve fresh fruits and vegetables and whatnot for cooking. So he would have so that would be his thing to do. You know, get yourself a pantry, put your stuff in there, keep it fresh, and then you take it out every time you want to go and cook. You can take it, you can go and fry it, you can go and bake it, you can go and roast it or whatever. So he has 3 different tables and 3 different kinds of maybe tiers of food. So I can go and quickly fry it for you, I can go and bake it for you, or I can go and roast it for you. So now I've got 3 different things. You can have the 1 hour, the 2 hour, the 3 hour. And depending on whatever one you want, boom, it's going to cost you this amount of materials, or not materials, components to make, you know, the incense or whatever, and it's going to cost you a little bit more coin. So these are the kind of things that I would definitely love to see happen when it comes to crafting. Give us multiple ways or multiple things to do.
Complexity.
Yeah.
Complexity in the way you deal with it.
Yeah, if Pantheon was going to be primarily a crafting game, what I would preferably like to have seen would be that, you know, I'm still an adventurer, even though crafting is the main focus of whatever game. I get a bunch of meat from adventuring. I take it to a butcher. I can just give him the meat if I want, if he's my friend. Or I can be like, here's some meat. Can you make me some stuff? You know, and he could even sit there and be like, well, what do you want? He's like, I can just, you know, mash it up and cook it. I can smoke it. I can turn it into jerky, whatever you want, you know? And the same will go with, like, you know, if I find some crazy magical wood, I can take this some money. He's like, sure, you know, I can make you, I don't know, like an amulet out of it or something. You know, just as an example. Yes, I know that isn't how it works, but still, you know, it would give me, even though I'm an adventurer, possibly not even a crafter at all, a reason to seek out crafters, to start that dialogue with them. Because that butcher or that carpenter or that blacksmith, if I'm constantly going back, because you know, we got the same play times, and I'm constantly going back to them, eventually we're going to start talking. We're going to maybe even become friends. You know.
Now,
whereas not being a crafter in every other game, there's no way that I'm going to make friends with crafters unless they adventure.
Two things I want to quickly bring up. One funny from Kath. We can't call a wizard to make longer duration berry with ice comet. Very funny, dude. And what Fox has said, definitely. Everybody who's played EverQuest 2, the newer version, will know that you can actually do orders for other players. You would basically you would basically go to your crafting table, click on the player that you want to interact with, and then click on the recipe, and it would open up a work order for that player. Now, what Shai said, or Frogzor, is definitely correct. I would actually like to expand on this idea. If VR do tend to do something like this, what Frogzor suggested is absolutely perfect. Have the player who wants to have something made be able to look into the recipe book as well, and not have the crafter have to go through and filter. So let that player actually kind of like a catalogue. Here, this is my wares, this is what I can create for you. You as a player can have a look and see which one you actually want and what it's going to require you, and then we'll go and make it. I think that is actually a really good idea, to be able to see into the work orders. I mean, imagine having like the scribe. This is a cool craftable item for a scribe. What if the scribe can create a book, a catalogue for the individual crafters with their recipes? You basically get an empty book, and then you can basically transfer all your recipes into that book, and when somebody comes to visit you, goes to the crafting area, you can point him towards that catalogue. Yeah, go look at my catalogue. This is all the stuff that I can craft. You can see all the attributes on it. You can see what levels, what tiers there are. I think that would be an amazing asset towards crafting.
I would love to have something like, I don't know, if anyone there's played Elder Scrolls Online, they've kind of like got like this crafting quest board where you can go and it's just like, oh, craft 5 of these. I kind of want to see something like that, but it's where you interact with players looking for work. And when you go to the board, you can be like, okay, it's the person's name, he's a blacksmith. You can click on, you know, what he has, and it'll show you everything that he can make, because who knows, maybe he can make something else that I'm not aware of yet in the game, item-wise, and is slightly better than what I'm going after, but has close to the same materials. You never know. And you can actually be like, okay, yeah, I want this, and you can submit whatever materials that you currently have, and you know, you can submit the pay as well. But then that becomes like a quest for that crafter who goes to the board to see if he has work. He sees that I'm looking for, you know, Yarnella's gauntlets of backhanding. So he now has this quest to do this, and it shows.
I don't do that. I do not backhand people.
That don't deserve it.
So all of a sudden, this crafter now has this quest. You could see that, you know, maybe I submitted half of the materials, So it would come to him as, here's a half of materials that you already have to work with. You have to get the rest. And here's the pay as your reward. And then as that crafter, you can go out, get the rest of the materials, or go straight to the forge if you happen to have them on you, make it, submit the quest. Now, 2 days later, I log back in. You got your reward for finishing your little quest, which is basically like a player quest. I go and I check the board. Hey, it's completed. I click accept. I get my item. I'm running around with some flashy gauntlets that have a lot of dents on the backside.
Yeah. Josh, what about you? Anything to say to that?
Nah.
No?
That's, pretty good.
Yeah, because that's...
No. Continue.
That's definitely something that, looking back at what Fox has said, it makes perfect sense. I would love to see that. I mean, if you remember, Josh, yourself, in EverQuest 2, they actually had empty books where players could actually write stories into.
Yeah, exactly.
And having people be able to put in their recipes, what they can actually craft and whatnot, and have other people come into their crafting area and just look at this book and say, hey, I want this. You could even do this with work orders. So you could technically say, hey, I'm looking for work. I'm an armor smith or whatever. Write down or place an order, and it gets put into that book. And you, when you're going home, or it's the middle of the night, the guild's gone home, or your friends have logged off or whatever, you still want to play the game. You've got a ton of work to do. You go to your crafting area. You open up your work orders from players, and you see, Lexer wants 10 of these, Josh wants 5 of that, Frogzor wants 100 of those done, and so forth, and you start working your way around these. I mean, those are really cool ideas, and it kind of gives the crafters that feel of, hey, I'm playing an MMO that's obviously focused on socializing, going out into the world, adventuring and doing stuff, but it's also entertaining my crafting needs on a level that's almost equal to the adventuring level. And don't forget what VR also said, we have to keep this in the back of our heads. Being an adventurer and a crafter will benefit you long term. So you can decide to go and just be an adventurer. We don't know if you can just go and decide to be a crafter, but with the ideas that we've been talking about throughout our shows, we are trying to, or not trying to, but we hope that maybe something like this will be pursued, because this is something that's always been missing in MMOs, is you've got one set path. You've got the optimal path, which is the adventuring side. There's never a game out there that kind of accommodates adventurers, crafters, or maybe even just explorers, people that just want to go around and visit stuff and see stuff. They've never all been entertained. They've all got the adventuring aspect has always got like 95% of the game, and 5% always goes towards crafting or towards the exploring aspect. But what if I just want to be a crafter in Pantheon, an MMO that has dungeons and whatnot? Just because I'm concentrated on crafting doesn't mean I can't take part in the adventuring side of the game. Now, everybody who watched that video from SDCC, I don't know if this was just done for the video, but if you remember, so far they've got 6 people in the group. But in that video, there were 7. There were always 7 people in that group. Now, what if they entertain the option? We're kind of sidetracking here, but this will all come into perspective. What if they do entertain the option of having a min-max group size? You have a minimum of 6 people in a group, and you have a maximum of 8, because they are entertaining the idea of going up to 8 players. So this would add kind of challenge, a deeper challenge to the hardcore players who want to have that challenge in front of them. They could technically go into a dungeon that's set up for 8 people in a group with 6 people and do it. Now this is what I'm thinking about, the crafters. People that just want to craft in the game, they can go in as a 7th man or an 8th man and just tag along and gather special resources, Maybe try and get some special recipes and whatnot. And, you know, they have their basic fighting skills and so forth. Just an idea. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's a good idea. I think that if you had to increase it, those 2 slots would be fixed slots for crafters and I don't know, people that aren't adventurer type guys at the end of the day.
I think I'd be okay with that as an adventurer, only if the crafter has a way to benefit the group rather than just following behind and picking up our mess.
Well,
you know?
Oh, bonuses.
Here we go.
Right.
Fresh food for us.
Repairing stuff for us on the go.
Yeah.
Instead of having to go back to town and everything. Setting up campsites, maybe, that benefit us with mana and whatnot.
Slots.
Extra carrying slots, for instance. So there's definitely ways. So these are things that you could also add to like a crafting AA tree. You can have like the jack of all trades crafter from the adventuring side aspect of the game.
There's a lot of things you can do. Like I don't even remember because it's been a while. If they were going to do item repairs in Pantheon, I don't really remember.
Yeah, because
let's for just a second assume that repairs are a thing. If you had a blacksmith or a tailor in your group as your 7th or 8th man, or your crafter slot for the group, then armor of the appropriate type would receive less damage because technically the crafter could keep it maintained.
Mm-hmm.
So right there, as a person who's most likely going to be a plate tank, I'd be like, hey, my buddy is a blacksmith. He doesn't like adventuring, but I'm going to help him out by giving him a slot in this group I'm running. And at the same time, I'm going to benefit because he's saving me money.
Mm.
You know?
I mean, it's definitely an entertaining idea to kind of give crafters AA as well, where you could have like a jack of all trades, where technically you could have the blacksmith, like we've talked about this already, a blacksmith being able to repair gear in the field, or a tailor. Having all the players, you know, who, let's say for instance the 6-man group, they're all crafters of some sort. We're 6 different random crafters. We can create a fairly decent campsite. We can create a complete campsite. Whereas if we had 2 of the same crafter or 3 of the same crafter, we could only create a third of the campsite. So now add AAs into this, where let's say a scribe could unlock being able to medic your armor. So he doesn't do a great job like a blacksmith would. A blacksmith would repair your armor fully to 100%. But if he had this AA where a non-blacksmith or non-leathering crafter could like choose to be able to repair these, he could maybe repair your gear to maybe 50%. Yeah. So he'd have to do it more frequently. Obviously, he'd have to repair your gear more frequently if the case comes that you die a lot. So he's going to have to repair it every 4 times you die, he's going to have to repair it. Whereas maybe the blacksmith is only every 10 times. So giving people this option to add to their repertoire and this is stuff that would only work on the adventuring side.
Yeah.
It's only when they're adventuring in a group.
Another aspect could be as well is if you got a blacksmith with you, they could actually find rarer crafting materials, or if they're going down into the caves, they can actually refine some of the ore that's sticking out of a rock that maybe you can't as an adventurer. So it benefits the guild in taking back rare crafting materials to build with.
Well, they've already said, I think that's what they're kind of getting at. Being an adventurer and a crafter will benefit you. So if you are those 2, then you will be able to get that rare material that you technically, you've seen it all over the place.
Sure.
Well, what is it? What is it? You can't do anything because you're just an adventurer. But hey, I'm a crafter now. I can go and look, I'm a blacksmith. I can mine this. all of a sudden. So I think they're kind of hinting at that kind of thing as well. Lex, your view on what we just discussed.
Well, when I look at crafting, I always consider crafting split down the middle between gathering and actual crafting or creation. Because as a person who never really felt engaged in the crafting systems of most MMOs, I'm always an adventurer / gatherer. Because who knows when I'm going to need it, or at the very least I could sell it for money.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a slot for in a group for just a crafter, that's going to be real tough. Because technically what you're saying is this is for just a crafter, but a crafter adventurer is still going to be better. Because no matter what, he's got that extra half of the game to benefit him. So they've got like that whole adventuring aspect, plus they can do all the crafting stuff you want. So there'd be no reason to get just a crafter to come into the group.
Well, not everybody's going to be, the adventurer crafter.
No, it's just going to be tough. Those who are not into adventuring and just want to experience that crafting or that economical side of the game, that means you're really going to have to pull out some like major internet charisma to get into some of these places, which works for some people. I mean, don't get me wrong, it does. Some people could talk you into trying to walk up 40 flights of stairs on your hands, But fact of the matter, there are people such as myself who like to organize groups and stuff. If I see, say, a warrior who's also a max blacksmith versus a guy who's just a max blacksmith, you could sweet talk me all day. I'm taking the dwarf who's the high-level warrior and the high-level crafter. It's just fact of the matter.
I agree with you, and I think that'll definitely be the case. If I'm a warrior, but I'm also a blacksmith, but I've maxed out in blacksmith, I certainly would add more benefit. But what if the crafter that is just a blacksmith with a bit of warrior skills, and his primary focus is the crafting side of it, perhaps he only has access to one or two things as a crafter that the warrior / blacksmith can never really obtain. Then it might actually be a benefit.
That does make sense. The issue with that is that now you have advancement, be it through points or whatever, that has to be split between adventuring and crafting in order to push all of those extra points that they would have in adventuring towards crafting to go beyond what that warrior blacksmith could do and make it so that you would choose them. I don't know how I feel about that. If I had points where I had to decide between adventuring and crafting, now, if it say all of your advancement points are just pooled, you get 5 every level. Being primarily an adventurer, unless the crafting is super, super crazy, amazingly engaging, I'll probably get stuck into this pattern of 3 points for adventuring, 2 for crafting.
What about entertaining the idea of they almost try to do it in EverQuest too. You'll relate to this with Grim Dawn, Lex. Let's say, for instance, now when you create your character, you log into the world, you start talking to NPCs. They now ask you, how do you see yourself? First and foremost, I see myself as a crafter first and foremost. So now, boom, that's your main prerogative. Whereas Lexa comes into the game and he says, I see myself first and foremost as an adventurer. That's your main prerogative. So now your main focus is the adventuring side. You've picked that line, that's your role. Whereas Joshua has gone and said, my main role is crafter. You've now basically kind of broken down what you just talked about and made it where it would work, because now you've got somebody who's primarily focused on the crafting aspect, you're primarily focused on the adventuring aspect, and then later on you can choose the secondary, which would be the crafting or the adventuring.
Now in my mind, what I've got stuck in my head right now as a developer is, you know how you make a character in Guild Wars 2, you go through his story and you pick things? I could see a question like what you just said, do you see yourself as an adventurer or a crafter? If I pick adventurer, then they kind of decide how many points I get into adventuring versus crafting each level. You know, like I'm more of an adventurer, so I get 3 points to spend every level in my adventuring stuff, but I get 2 points in my crafting. And if you are a crafter primarily, then that would be vice versa. I get 3 in crafting, 2 in adventuring.
Yeah.
And then the difficulty comes in where how do you maintain it so that even though you're a crafter, you're still a viable adventurer? You know, I understand that being higher in crafting means you get higher up. You can get maybe auras that do things, and a blacksmith now can give armor auras or something, you know? But
I'm going to say something. We said it before.
Shut up, Lex.
This isn't, hey, you can do everything. We are not handing you everything. You have to pick and choose. If you want to go and craft, you craft. That's your main aspect, you craft. Yes. It's a choice.
But the difficulty lies in how do you merge the two worlds? That's why a lot of these MMOs, they never really spend a lot of time on crafting because they can't think of a way to merge crafting with adventuring. And I mean, that's not a detriment to these developers because it's not an easy task.
I know.
I'm glad I'm not the one that has to worry about it.
You know, that's why we do these shows, to kind of nudge the developers in the right direction. That's why the community is so active and talking about this on the forums and stuff. You know, everybody's got these crazy cool ideas, and it's going to be up to us as the community to voice these out and let the future game developers know this is the stuff that we are discussing, not because we're bored. It's something that we are actually interested in. We want to entertain. This is how we see our MMOs of the future. So this is why we do this at the end of the day, to forge ideas, speculate.
Speculation we know is not going to be in Pantheon.
Exactly.
But who's to say that a certain topic of speculation doesn't influence what we see in Pantheon?
Yeah.
You know, it might change something just a little bit to make it from okay to great.
Yep.
You know, and that could even just be, hey, this is what they talked about, let's try that, or this is what they talked about, let's avoid that. You know?
Exactly, because at the end of the day, it's pure speculation. We're here to help them along. You know, try and connect the dots and everything. And it's going to be up to us all, as a community together to, you know, voice our ideas, our wishes, our concerns and everything, because you know we're all looking for that new MMO experience. That, you know, I want that fresh car smell. I want that fresh car smell back.
Fresh dwarf smell.
I want to suggest one more thing though.
Go on in.
That they actually make recipes bind to guild and not just bind on to a person. So they have that extra option as well.
How would you feel instead of doing something like that, there was something where someone with a particular recipe could, you know, teach another crafter on how to do it? It wouldn't be easy, but they could potentially teach them how to do it. Because if you just say, I scribe a recipe, now it's available to everyone in the guild, that kind of devalues it in my eyes.
No.
It kind of makes...
I'm not talking about scribing it though. I'm talking about picking it up on a guild, on a raid, for instance, and you go and deposit it in the actual... You're allowed to go drop it into the guild repository of
knowledge,
items of knowledge, for instance.
So,
and the guy
are you talking
that scroll and learn it?
Are you talking about
of like a recipe from like with WoW, where it just be a scroll, you pick it up, you right click it, boom, you know it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So are you talking about though? Are you talking about limiting it though to the individual crafting jobs though?
Yeah. So you might have a
weaponsmith.
A blacksmith scroll,
okay,
or a cooking scroll, or whatever the case may be.
Right, I kind of like the idea, but if we go and look at blacksmithing, they've already mentioned, I think it was VR, Pantheon that mentioned this, specializing blacksmithing. So going into armor, or going into weaponry, for instance. Now, let's say, for instance, this, it would. I could see this working for the basic spells, basic, recipes and whatnot. But for specializations, if I specialize in armor, and now you found a spell that's a recipe for weaponry, I shouldn't technically be able to read that in.
If I find a recipe for a dagger of slaying, and I pick it up from the dragon we've just killed, and I go, okay, that's not something I can use, but I know that Bob Geldorf in the guild, who's not on the raid with us today, can actually make use of that.
Yep.
So it's a bind on pickup for the guild.
Yep. I can
not just for myself, because it's going to be useless to me.
I could see this being useful, but it would have to be limited, because this is basically it's treading on this, we'll hand you everything kind of thing. What I would do for that is you can now go, as a player, take that spell, or that recipe, read it in, you've got it there and then, okay? You've now got that spell, Josh. If we take it and put it into the guild repository to have this knowledge for all the other blacksmiths out there or whatever, I would put a time frame on it where this knowledge then becomes available. It would have to take some time for the knowledge to become available to pass it on to other players or other crafters, is how I would see that working. Otherwise, it's just basically, go out in the dungeon, gather the recipes or spells or whatever it is we're going to go and gather, and then we'll pass it on to everybody else, and he's got it. It's kind of like a handout. It's a free handout. There would have to be restrictions. Go on, Lex.
With the whole ability to sell or transfer a recipe. Now, let's assume I think they mentioned something about how they're trying to stay away from stuff that's like bind on, pick it up or whatever, unless you customize it for items.
Yeah.
So let's assume that there's recipe drops. Let's assume that they are not bound in any way when you pick it up, which means you can sell them, which could possibly open up, a whole market. It could also potentially devalue the items if they're farmed too much. What if there was a case where, you didn't always had to get that drop, like the scroll, to learn something? Instead, you could find someone who has it as an alternative, and they would mentor you, and when they craft it, you get a certain percentage towards the knowledge of learning that recipe.
That's actually an entertaining idea as well, because we've seen it all before. When people are in the crafting area, they're sitting there doing their thing, and that's it. They're sitting there dumb, doing their thing. Now, what if I could, apprentice somebody? He wants to learn this spell. So now I am socializing with this dude. We're chatting along, talking with each other while I'm teaching him this spell, and he's learning it. Definitely a cool way to look at it. Even and plus you got to think about it as well, Josh. If we limit this only to guilds, what about that? What about that? That group of friends that don't technically have a guild. They don't want to be in a guild.
I'm not saying all recipes. I'm just saying certain ones, maybe rare ones.
Right.
There's definitely merit for all ways to do it. There's definitely pros and cons to it. Doing it from the guild perspective, doing it from what Lexa suggests, I see merit for both, and I could even see actually entertaining both variations, because this is what I was talking about. If you remember back in the day to our earlier crafting shows, I was talking about becoming a master so-and-so. If I become a master so-and-so, I can apprentice people. I can teach them my knowledge. They would learn faster. I would become like the master carpenter of the city of Thronefast or whatever. And I have special access to the city. I get special jobs from the city where I can upgrade the city's walls and this, that, and the other. And I could see, me passing on my knowledge and teaching young carpenters a lot faster. So if I go and apprentice somebody, because I become a master carpenter, I'm now able, something I would have to unlock as well, I am now able to go and apprentice people, give my knowledge to apprentices, take on maybe 2 apprentices at a time, and I can teach them all my knowledge, and they would skill up a little faster. So there's reward and merit for both. For instance, looking down the line of the game's out now for 3, 4, 5, 10 years, new people are coming in, they're lost, they're afraid. Now, if we have Master Carpenter and Master Cleric as what I've obtained over the years, I can now take up apprentices and teach people to craft as a carpenter and to adventure like a cleric faster. They get a little bonus. So it's kind of like a mentoring system where they get a benefit. They're not lost. They're getting a little boost. I'm helping, I'm socializing, maybe potential new members for the guild or whatever. You know, I'm actually doing something, giving back to the community, and that's my reward.
And it's another case of that awe that new players feel when there's a high-level person in the area. Like the first time you've ever played an MMO, you see that max-level warrior running by with the glittery swords and the big crazy armor. You know, you just look and be like, wow. The same thing should apply with crafters. When you see a high-level crafter, you should be in awe of them.
Yep.
And it's also a reason for high-level people to seek out lower levels. You know, it creates that interaction that crosses that level boundary.
But I would definitely like to see that be something that we have to look up to. You know, I want the crafters and the adventurers to look up at the higher picture and say, Lex says, I want to be a Master Direlord. Josh says he wants to be a Master Ranger or whatever, or Monk. I want to be a Master Cleric. And that's my adventuring goal. Once I've achieved that, I am basically God. People will look down at me and say, hey, this guy or these guys have gone through hell and back. They've put a lot of time and effort into it. They have now achieved that. And as my reward, I can go and apprentice people. And the same goes for crafting. It shouldn't be something that I can do on the go. It should be something that crafters will have to achieve. That gives us challenge. That gives us something to look forward to. Gives us something additionally to do. So I definitely would love to entertain those ideas. And, you know, be able to apprentice people. But it's going to have to be earned. I'm going to have to become a master crafter.
Right.
I would have to...
See, with adventuring, there's a lot of games that do this mentoring system for adventuring. You know, I'm the high level, it down levels me and stuff, which has never been done right from a mathematics background. It's never been done right, plain and simple. That needs to be done right. But I always confuse me why crafting never had the same system, because it makes more sense for the crafting system to have it. Look at electricians. If you're a master electrician, you bring on an apprentice in order to teach him how to do things. You know? So it's kind of like anything, well, not anything, but the vast majority of things that an adventurer should have, I feel a crafter should have as well. And that's coming from an adventurer.
Definitely. You know? There's definitely a need for that. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I love crafting, but there is a point where it gets boring, because I'll level up the next 10 levels. I know that I'm going to get a new storage box that's going to have maybe 4 slots more. That's my money maker right there. Whereas maybe the armorer knows that, hey, I'm going to get some new armor gear to craft for, you know, tanks and this, that and the other. And it's rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat throughout the entire game. I spend 4 or 5 hours in the crafting cellar, putting on my potions, leveling myself up to the next 10 levels, and then flooding the market with my stuff, being the first to make a shit ton of money. I'm bored. That is boring. I do not want to do that anymore. I want crafting, I want adventure. I would love to see adventuring and crafting go multiple paths. Give me multiple options to pursue.
If I would consider Pantheon a victory, like an utter MMO victory, regardless of the number of subscribers and all this other stuff, if I can go in and I can make a Scar Direlord, and I can play from level 1 to max level, and then I can go right back, make another Scar Direlord, play it, and then not arrive, or I arrive at the same destination through a different manner.
Exactly. You know, different choices.
The same combination again, because I'm not bored of it yet. Right there. You've basically beat every other MMO in my eyes.
We've all done that though. We've all tried that. I tried that in EverQuest 2. I created 2 wardens and tried to take on different paths, but because of the linear approach of this is the flavor of the month, you have to take this, otherwise you're not going to be effective approach. Like Lex is spot on there. If we can make different life choices with our crafters and with our adventurers, and in the end reach the end of the game, but Lexa took the blue path with his first Dire Lord, the blue pill, and now with the second Dire Lord, he's taken the red pill. He's not going to be bored.
I took them both.
He's not going to be bored because he's taking a different approach, and his Dire Lord, either from the blue or the red side, are still effective. They're different, but they're still effective. That is the perfect MMO. I think. And anyway, we're kind of drifting away, but I think there's some great ideas, a good open idea discussion here. We have no current calendar for August up yet. We're going to be working on that in the next couple of days, and I should have that up for you guys all sometime early next week. Just be known that we are there on Thursday again. We will be there Thursday. Nothing's changed.
Roll the dice and see what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, we're gonna roll the magic dice and see what we're gonna do. Anyway, great discussion, guys. I really enjoyed it. Any last words?
Yeah, I think it was very productive. And I think if they take along the path of Vanguard and add 1 or 2 more modern twists to it, I think Pantheon's in the right direction.
For me, I think all I could really say to VR at this point is give crafters same benefit of the attention you give the adventurers. So if an adventurer has a certain feature or a certain option, try to think of a way that a crafter could do the same thing. Like there's lots of reasons to socialize as an adventurer because you get together in large groups or raid. Well, maybe there's something that crafters can get that's equal. And getting that nice balance so that one side doesn't feel like it has all the attention and one side isn't the favorite child. We're all going to be in a very good position to make Pantheon our home for a very long duration.
Nicely said. So, what I want to say, just to add to this, VR, you've got your perception system. You're thinking about using it for adventuring and crafting. That is most probably one of your most valuable assets when it comes to doing what Lex said and adding that all to giving that passion to crafters as well that you give to adventurers. With the perception system, you can do that. You've got a great engine that you're using where you can add assets in later. We don't expect to see everything. If you do entertain the idea of showing more love towards crafting and you can't get it in right away, just let it be known that you are actually pursuing these ideas. As long as we know that it's going to happen at some point in time, and you are actually looking towards balancing it out and creating 2 equals rather than just having one up here, and the other one down here, goes a long way. As long as we know it's coming, take your time when doing it. Shy, were there any questions in chat?
Well, I had 3 things that we wanted to comment on. First one was from Windswift. And they were curious about magically enhanced food and food containers handled through tiers.
It would make sense. It would give you a reason to pursue more skilled crafters.
Definitely, and it could be like, you could even split that down into different areas of magic, for instance. You could have like, you know, arcane magic containers. You could have ice or fire or whatever. You can kind of break those down and give people kind of like decisions to make. Do I want to go and specialize on this magical aspect of the thing or that magical aspect of the thing? So it's different paths that they can take, and it opens up a broader market, because you're going to have people that are specializing in one then the other. So you're going to have to go and seek out who can do this, who can do that, and it kind of brings up specializing and makes more value and opens up a broader market. Definitely a cool idea.
All right, the second one was from our own Dayhawk, and he said that he wants to be able to take that piece of armor that he just found that looks uber sweet, but it's a downgrade to what he's using. He'd like to be able to take it back to the crafting station, break it down, and add its cosmetic design to the crafting list, so that when he does make a piece of gear, he can choose how it looks.
We've already discussed this, I think, on multiple crafting shows. We're definitely all for adding cosmetics to your existing armor. We even took it one further, where we said basically for certain aspects of gear, be it rare gear or epic gear, for instance, I would love to actually maintain my epic gear throughout my lifespan of the game. So when a new expansion comes out, technically my epic gloves are useless, but I could take gloves from the higher tier, bring them back, break them apart, and add those attributes onto my existing gloves, and still keep those gloves and still have that epicness to it. And the same goes for cosmetics. We've already talked about that. Lex, you know, would love to be able to add spikes to his plate armor and dye it black, and have, you know, like maybe it's imbued in red, a red glow and whatnot, and then adding skulls onto his shoulders and stuff. Definitely. You know, it's been done in multiple games. I mean, Dark Age of Camelot, I think, did something similar to that. So why not? It's fluff technically, but it's something to do. It adds variance into the game. It's something that I can do on the side, and, you know, maybe I get some cool, crazy stuff out of it. Fluffy unicorns on my armor. Who knows? Yeah, so definitely.
Hot pink greaves or go home.
And finally, it's not really a question. It was more of a statement from Catharsis 22 that I thought was rather interesting. They said that they liked the EQ Next events idea, where you should build a harbor in a city, and you need adventurers to defeat goblins in a forest, gatherers to bring the wood, and crafters to actually build the harbor. That's another purpose to create something, because if it's just crafting to craft again, it's kind of boring.
Yeah, we discussed that also on multiple crafting shows, and even I think even on our faction show as well, is where we brought that up as well. We talked about having like world events, caravans, where crafters would basically have to go and build like outposts along the trade route between the two cities. Yeah. So we would build outposts that would protect these caravans going back and forth, and you could have the adventurers basically entertain the idea of actually going as protection with these caravans to reach their destination through the world events, having, you know, massive giants or ice golems attacking the major cities and destroying stuff, where crafters would have to come in and rebuild everything, where adventurers would have to come in and you know, fight off the horde that's attacking, and have people go gather materials for these people that can build or rebuild the city. Because we also would like to entertain the idea of having that be something that you have to earn. You have to earn the right to be able to fix the city, advance the city. It should be something that has to be earned through, you know, crafting tasks, adventuring tasks, and stuff like that. So we've talked about this multiple times, and it's good to see others out there interested in similar ideas.
Yeah, I think that was actually the main draw that I had with EverQuest Next, was that crafters and adventurers were coming together to actually do a large event. And that's kind of what I want out of Pantheon. Again, not necessarily specifically those kind of events, but reasons that adventurers and crafters can come together to do a common task or a common goal.
Yeah. And have meaning, purpose. Yeah. It's not something that you just do and then
just do because you have to for rating.
After the patch is done or the updates come out, everything that you've done prior is useless. Make my story feel like a perception. What I start off doing has an impact regardless of where I am in my time period. When I look back, I want to be able to say, hey, I remember doing this. I remember that. This is so vital why I did this. And then, you know, when I go down somewhere, progress further, and I reach a crossroads, now I have to make an ultimate choice. Where do I go? And how is this going to impact me? You know, like, I remember these, the Schwarze Auge, the black eye, I can't remember what those books are called, or the board game's called. You know what I mean, Lex? There's this book series called the Schwarze Auge. It was basically a book where you read through pages, and then at the end you had a choice. You could go to page 49 and carry on your adventure.
Choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, choose your own adventure kind of thing. Those are the kind of things that...
I'm thinking, I never read a book that called that.
I don't know what the English term was, but basically stuff like that where I have life choices as well through my perception that could, you know, have a vital impact on me, regardless of crafting, regardless of adventuring. Those are the kind of things that I think would definitely go a long way. Anyway, great show, guys. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next Thursday. Same channel, same time.
Bat time, same bat channel with my same bat boxers.
And have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes.
Cheers.
Auf Wiedersehen. What else have we got?
Aloha.
Yeah, aloha. Ciao. Au revoir.
Auf Wiedersehen.
We done. Go home.
TTYL.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
We should have an also basically, you know, a short break. Thanks for watching, and then we come on for extras.